As a young creative myself, I'm fascinated by Australian-renowned hyper-realist painter Robin Eley's journey in developing his ultimate passion for art. Starting off drawing Garfield and basketball players as a kid to becoming a professional illustrator, then literally taking the world by surprise, making a leap of faith from pencil to paint, creating a stunning, real-life-like self-portrait of himself that awarded him runner-up in the Doug Moran National Art Prize in 2010, which catapulted him onto creating incredible wrapped portraits, heavily influenced by history, creating his reputation as an artist today. The discipline, conviction and self-belief that Robin has demonstrated on his journey thus far is incredible and inspirational for us young creatives. I wish for this story to set your creative juices on fire to a life of personal fulfillment, doing what it is you love. That is exactly what Robin has achieved, and his art, as he describes, it's so connected to who I am. It's just me.
It's been a while since it felt like this. It's been a while since it felt like this. Been a while since it felt like
You guys are crazy. Well, I guess I did ask for it, right? Hello! Oh my goodness, this is amazing! Alright, should we do it? Yeah. Alright, let's go!
Since it felt like this. It's been a while since it felt like this.
You know, the last 8 years living in LA, no one knows me. No one really cares, you know. And so like it's kind of nice to be anonymous for a while, but it's also nice to come back and actually just run into people. I go to the shops and I ran into a friend from high school I hadn't seen in 25 years, and I've always wondered what he went on to do and how he was doing. I think about it quite often. Just standing there in front of the supermarket and had the best chat. So it was really enjoyable, and that would just obviously never happen if I moved back here. It is, yeah, I find that the creative community here is actually really supportive, and I found in bigger cities it can be quite competitive to the point of being a little destructive. Yeah. You know? Whereas I think Adelaide is I don't know why that is, because it should. There's no reason it shouldn't still be competitive. But I think it's just something about the tenor of Adelaide that makes everyone just support each other.
Was that black limo what you had in mind?
It was more than what I had in mind. It was incredible, and I thank you very much for the experience. I've been all over the world, but I had to come back home to finally take my first ride in a black Hummer, so thank you very much.
We like to take things very, very seriously.
Clearly.
When I was looking at your paintings, I thought that you actually wrapped it. And when I saw it at your house, I was like, very surprised that was even possible to be able to do, because I've seen people replicate the Mona Lisa, Starry Night, Girl with the Pearl Earring and stuff like that, but it was another level to like paint that. And do you paint it first? Or no, you don't. You paint it with the plastic.
That's actually probably the most common question I get, is whether I do the the painting first and then paint the wrap over the top. No, you're right. I paint the whole thing at one time because there's the plastic obscures, blurs out, like it changes what's underneath to the point where there's really nothing to be gained by painting the painting underneath first. It's much actually easier to do it all at the one time.
How would you describe your life from age 5 to teenage years?
You know, to be honest, I believe that if we talk in terms of my creative journey, it really began when I was probably 2, because I vividly remember drawing when we lived in London, and I moved to Australia when I was 3. So I can remember back when in London we had this metal tray that was a Union Jack, and it was filled with crayons. And I remember we had this one room where I'd do my drawings and I'd just go and grab crayons out of the tray and I'd be drawing. So that's when my creative journey started. And then as we moved to Australia, I never stopped drawing. On a summer afternoon, the cricket, I'd put on the TV and I'd sit down and I'd just draw from morning all the way through to night, go to bed, wake up in the morning. The first thing I'd do would be run up to that room and see the thing that I'd spent all day. It was the most exciting moment of my day, was to see what I had just drawn the previous day, and then I'd sit down and I'd draw all over again. But then obviously there was, you know, as a child, you do other things as well. For me, it was sports and drawing, and that's the way it began. But it also, as a kid, it made me feel good about myself. And I think that being a little maybe socially awkward or anxious and not that comfortable making friends, found it difficult to make a lot of friends. Those were the 2 things that I retreated to as the way just to feel good. But then they gradually went from that to the things that sort of began to define me as I grew up, and I became known as the basketball kid. And then a little bit later in high school became known as the art kid as well.
With like parents being able to recognise a passion in their child, what advice would you give to them in being able to facilitate to what the child needs to pursue that?
That's interesting, because I think my opinion on that has been formed now more as a parent of young children rather than my experiences growing up, because I don't really remember. I just remember I had the space to do it. I had the opportunity to do it. And having now seen my kids take up art every day, I know now that the only thing that I've really done to foster that myself and my wife is just to give them the stuff and then just step away and make the things available for when the mood strikes. You never know what's just going to kind of set the mind on fire. One thing that we've tried to do recently is, you know, limit their interaction with things that do the thinking for them, like devices, for instance. We haven't taken them out of the house because navigating the use of devices as a child is actually, I think, is important, because they're going to encounter it wherever they go. I know growing up, it was TV. So when you sit down in front of a TV, it would do the thinking for you. It would do the entertaining for you. And I went from being able to write stories as a kid to suddenly I couldn't do it anymore because I had stopped thinking because I'd watched so much television as a kid.
I realised, even though we're completely different people, we both moved to a different state or country when we were 3. And when I was little, when we lived in Queensland, my mum would leave paints out like on the grass in just different spots, and I'd just stick my hands in the paint and smash it on the paper.
Mm-hmm. I would encourage any child who loves making art, don't judge yourself based on your ability to copy something, because that does not define your ability as an artist.
When you're at school, you were told to loosen up. Mm-hmm. When you recognised your passion, did that change people's perception of you?
In much the same way as a child is taught to embrace art if they can replicate reality, as you move through art school and you get older, I think teachers are taught, if you encounter a child that does that, the best instruction you can give them is to loosen up and let it go. And I think that can sometimes be good advice, but for me, what it made me do was lose a sense of myself in my work and really not and lose that connection that I had my whole life. If you're lucky enough to have a teacher who really connects with you and understands you as an artist and a person, that advice will be catered towards you. But for me, yeah, it moved me away from what I loved to do and made me really question my ability to do it professionally. But it was only when I really realized that, hey, this is who I am. I have always made artwork this way, and that's not a bad thing. That's just who I am. When I really leaned into that, that was when my ability to craft a career and evolve as an artist really began to develop. If your goal is to reach a point where you can become a professional artist in some form, it takes a lot of failure and a lot of making, and the only way to make and continue producing at the level that you need to is if you enjoy what you're doing.
Basketball is a very enjoyable and popular and accessible sport across the world. How do you think playing it helped you on your path of self-development?
It gave me something to join, I think. Growing up, you want to be part of something, and drawing was great, but it was always in isolation, right? To the point where no one really knew that I did it until the very end of high school. Basketball, it was my social activity, it was my physical outlet, and it was something about, for me, being a kid that sort of lacked confidence in social settings. When I walked over those lines on the court and inside the white lines of that court, I felt confident. And so that for me was the foundation upon which I really built my entire identity in childhood, because it was the one thing that I was publicly good at but also really enjoyed.
What was your most memorable moment playing basketball?
I think when I was playing in college, our team went to the Final Four, which means all of the teams in the whole country play, and it's the top 4 teams that are left at the final tournament, and we made it to the last 4. That was probably the most memorable moment for me because it was the best we ever did.
Would you like to play a game of basketball?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Been a while since it felt like this. Been a while since it felt like this. Been a while since it felt like this.
You're getting better.
It taught me the value of hard work as well, because I went through a period where I didn't really practice. I think because I was good, I could be good without practicing. And then suddenly I looked around and all the other guys around me were getting better than me because they were working on their game outside of just playing. They were practicing, they were training, and I wasn't doing that. And all of a sudden I went from being one of the better players to not being that anymore, and that was jarring. And so I was like, right, I'm gonna start working. And I immediately saw the benefit of putting in longer hours and working on developing a skill. And when I decided to move away from basketball and focus in completely on my artwork, that sort of laser-like focus essentially just transferred directly from basketball to art, and that same work ethic that I'd applied came with it, and that enabled me to develop my technical abilities and progress my career faster than I otherwise would have had I not had that athletic grounding. I didn't feel like getting up at 6 in the morning and going and running around the basketball court in freezing cold temperatures. I didn't feel like going to the weight room and lifting weight. But you just do it because that's what you're supposed to do. And it develops that sort of discipline and the ability to just kind of click into mode really quickly at the drop of a hat. And so I'm fortunate in that respect because, as I said, the most important thing in developing as an artist is to just keep producing. It's that continual production that allows you to move down that road, maybe faster than other people are moving down that road. And because as an artist, specifically for what I do, there is only so many spots on the top of that hill. Like, it was because a lot of people want that, but the industry can't support, you know, millions and millions of artists. So you are kind of, in a sense, in a little bit of competition with people, which is an uncomfortable thing to do with something you feel so passionate personally about.
Mm-hmm. And I think people have formed this idea that if I think a lot of people struggle with art, finding their own style and wondering if it's going to be successful or not.
Yep.
Because when I draw, I compare myself incessantly, and people say don't do it, and I try not to do it, and I try to be natural and just comfortable. I can't do it. It's really hard to move away from.
If you find out how to do it, make sure you tell me, because I'd love to learn how to do that as well. It is the advice that everyone gives, but no one's actually figured out how to successfully adopt. So I think having a group of friends and surrounding yourself with family and friends who both understand and can nurture your journey, people that really know you, that really care about you.
You went to the US when you were 19. Would you say that was an integral part of your success?
Oh, it was foundation. It changed everything for me, because when the kid that I was when I left was not the person that returned when I came back, because American culture is very different to Australian culture, and I was not prepared for it. And the person that I was here was, you know, quite shy, very reserved. I would never speak up for myself. Over there, that did not work. I got swallowed up almost immediately, and I struggled, and I had to learn to develop a sense of self. And so for me, being over there for those 5 years, both studying and playing basketball, really shaped who I would later become, or who I am now. Being in American culture, the good and the bad, gave me one great gift, and that was the idea, planted the idea in my mind that I could make a living out of making things. The college I was at, it required that you take a single art course in order to graduate the program. And the teacher noticed that I had a real aptitude artistically. And he came up to me and he said, "What's your major?" And I said, "Psychology." And he could tell from my responses that I was not overly enthusiastic about it. And he said, "Well, you know, why you should change your major to art." And I thought, well, you know, what's that going to get me? Somewhat naively, I just thought, you know, I'm here in this country following the greatest passion of my life at the time, which was basketball. Why not follow the other, which was art? The two things that I loved. I had now had an opportunity, I realized, to pursue both of them, but with no real end goal in sight. I didn't know whether I was going to be able to be professional as an athlete or as an artist, but I was there doing one, so I might as well do the other. So I changed my major to art. And then by the time I finished and graduated college, I felt my basketball was finished. I'd played 4 years, I was exhausted, I'd done enough. And all of that energy, all of that drive and passion suddenly, almost overnight, just moved directly over to my artwork.
So how did you climb the Harbour Bridge?
That was actually, I think, how many years ago was that now? 14 years ago, or 13 years ago, on my honeymoon. Yeah.
Oh, so you went to Sydney?
Well, we did this thing called a buddy moon, which is where you go on your honeymoon with your friends, because we had all these friends that were visiting from America, and they arrived 2 days before the wedding, and it seemed crazy for them to come all this way and for us to only see them for 2 days. Yeah, so we decided, let's plan this whole road trip with our friends, and so we ended up going to along the Great Ocean Road, Melbourne, and then up to Queensland, to Port Douglas, Great Barrier Reef, and then we came down through Sydney, and we climbed the Harbour Bridge, which was incredible. It was really cool.
Have you done the Adelaide roof climb?
I haven't, no.
I've done that. That was so fun. You got to hang and just like have nothing holding you except for the strap around your waist.
Really?
Yeah. And just hang back, and you're 50 meters in the air.
Wow.
I heard you like those big bowls of coffee you always try to finish.
Yeah.
Is it LA?
Yeah, there's one place they're literally that big. You have to order it super, super hot because by the time you get halfway through,
It's cold.
It's warm, but then you get to the bottom
And it's,
and it's
cold.
cold. So it's the challenge is to try to drink it before it gets cold.
You must
But-
be ecstatic when you finished it.
Oh, you're buzzing. Absolutely buzzing. Yeah.
They first start you off with this nice treat. This is like, they do different ones. Sometimes they do a popcorn dipped in caramel, dipped in chocolate, which is
Oh,
really
wow.
good.
Should I try one?
Yeah.
Okay. They look like little rocks.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So good.
So, what do you think you're going to order?
Definitely going to get a coffee.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
I can't really comment about the coffee because I haven't had any, but I can say the iced chocolates are really good.
Okay.
Thank you. I've tried a million of these and I think you should try it.
And what is it?
So, chocolate dipped in caramel, dipped in milk chocolate. I mean, popcorn dipped in caramel, dipped in chocolate.
Right. Okay, I'll give it a try. It's really good.
And sometimes they do like meringue shards and they're like got berries on them and stuff, and it's really good.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to try this coffee.
Okay. 10, or 5, 4,
You're counting me in on the coffee?
2,
Okay.
1, go.
Yep, it's really good.
Yeah, knew it.
It's got a fruitiness to it. Very sophisticated coffee. Now, should we head back to the studio?
Yes, I think that's really good. I can't wait to see your latest painting.
Yeah, I can't wait to show you. We should probably finish these first.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to see if I can grab one. There you
Oh,
go.
I don't have any ones I can't touch, so I can pull
There
it
you
out
go.
easily. I swear.
All right, let's go. That was really good.
How was your trip to LA and New York?
It was really good. Yeah, I unfortunately got sick when I was just leaving Los Angeles, so my last few days in New York were not that fun because I was in bed in my hotel room the entire time. But the trip was great. I got to meet with some clients, I got to meet with some friends, check in on my studio in LA, which was really good. See how things are going over there. There were some art festivals on, so I got to go to those. So yeah, it was good. It was a good trip. It was good to just go back to the place. You know, we lived for so long and just see people that I haven't seen in months and months. So it was great.
That's really cool. How does it feel back to being in this tree paradise?
I love it. I instantly decompress as soon as I get back here, and just to be able to walk outside and the only thing you hear are birds. It's just magic. Back in Los Angeles where we used to live, you'd hear cars, sirens, people shouting. It was just quite noisy, and you do get used to it after a while, but it's not something that I really want to get used to because it's just not. If you've got another option, the other option's probably better. Yeah, it's just really, really nice to be back.
Yeah.
It's been a while since it felt like this. It's been a while since it felt like this. Been a while since it felt